Hey team, it's Dr. Harry again from the Medicine Revive, and we've got a fantastic show for you this week, friends, because if you want to learn about core values, if you want to learn about team building, if you want to learn about coaching and how the value of coaching, then you're not going to be disappointed this week because we've got Sam Kaufman. Sam Kaufman is an entrepreneur, leader, husband, father of two. Sam's a firm believer that we must never stop building ourselves in our business, homes, and self. Now, Sam started out as a sole proprietor cabinet installer in a van, and he actually grew to seven figures in really under 3 years. He's operated businesses in multiple cities and is an avid core value implementer, which we'll talk about on this week's show, a standard operating procedure creator, and a team builder. Sam's obsessed with growth and improvement. A natural leader, he is deeply passionate about helping others becoming the best version of themselves. And Sam is, if that's not enough, Sam hosts the Never Stop Building podcast, a business coach and a consultant with Win Rate Consulting, and is a Forbes Business Council writer and contributor. That is a mouthful, my friend. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful that you are able to take some time out today and speak with us. Thank you so much, Sam. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate you reading that whole bio. I didn't realize how long it was when I sent it till you read it out loud. I apologize for that.
No, I think it's Sam, I think it's a credit to you. And I think it really sets up the stage for one of the many, many, many reasons that I was so excited to have the opportunity to speak with you today, because as we talked a little bit just offline, you embody really what I try to talk about every single week is, core values, standard operating procedures, leadership, becoming the best version of yourself. So that is why I am so excited. I know our listeners will be so excited to listen to this week's show. So Sam, tell us a little bit about yourself and really what got you to, where you were to where you are.
Sure. And if we're focused on, if we're going to focus on the core value side of that, I will preface what I'm going to say with the reason core values are so incredibly important to me and building the teams, coaching clients, the podcast, all of it, my family, is because there was a time in my life where I operated without any. And at that time in my life continued to go on a downward spiral. And so I want to say that this is, it's not the core value. Passion is not some made up woo-woo thing. It is, I've tried it both ways, and I much prefer living a life on an upward trajectory that involves integrity and a value structure than living a life of reactionary and negative thoughts and feelings that is not based on a value structure. So yeah, I mean, my background entrepreneurially, I've been doing that, if that's even a word, I don't know. I've been doing that since I was a teenager. I've been knocking doors, selling snow shoveling and landscaping and babysitting and dog walking. And I've always loved selling and doing all that stuff. And that's cool. And that's a lot of people's stories, especially in the business world, that there were salespeople turned business owners. More importantly, though, I like to share, I've always cared about and wanted to lead other human beings. I'm the oldest of three boys. There's a pretty decent age gap between myself and my younger brothers. My parents worked their butts off. I was around. I raised, helped, led, and it really, I believe that family structure really kind of propelled the dynamic for me later in life to do that with my teams in business, my children, my wife, my family, my church community, you name it. I like leading. I enjoy the responsibility that comes with leadership. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, my background, I ended high school. I had a very, very tough time. I barely graduated high school. I fell in with the wrong crowd and the wrong people. I was addicted to drugs and alcohol for many years. And at 22 years old, my life shifted. Some things changed, and I can go as in depth as you want, but I'll just say my life shifted. Some things changed. I entered recovery. And over the last 9 years, that's where the whole Never Stop Building, my podcast thing, comes from, is mm-hmm. For the last 9 years, my mantra for my life has been never stop. I never want to go back to where I came from. And so my mantra is that I never stop building, whether it's physical fitness, my values, my teams, myself, my knowledge, education, my businesses, whatever it is. I never want to be stagnant. life's like an uphill slide, man. You're either climbing up or you're just sliding right down. There's
Yeah.
really no hanging out in the middle. So that's kind of where my whole mentality came from.
With regards to your never stop building, do you have a set of routines that you go through every day, like your morning or your evening?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I'm currently doing 75 hard again. So this is going to be a little bit skewed from my normal daily, but yes, my current routine is, there's exercise first thing in the morning, followed by a healthy breakfast. Actually, yeah. I mean, this is pretty standard all the time. So my daily routines are, daily exercise. I count calories, not because I'm always dieting to lose weight, but because I like to make sure that I'm in control of my nutrition, my micro and macronutrient intake. And so there's vitamins and supplements. There is meals are planned, not restricted, but planned. I read every day. I exercise every day. I drink a gallon of water every day. Those things are actually on or off 75 hard. So that's not, the 75 hard adds an additional exercise and some additional tasks. But yes, I do have that daily routine: exercise, hydration, meals, supplementation, and reading are daily routines for me.
I think it's important to recognize that tracking is probably one of the most important things, not only what an entrepreneur can do, but someone who's not even in entrepreneurship, in healthcare, in finance, whatever. Data is really what is ultimately going to lead you to grow. Data, if you don't know where you are, then you don't know where you're going, and you don't know if you're improving or you're not improving or you're staying stagnant. So I think you said it perfectly, Sam, is you're tracking calories, not so much because you're trying to lose weight, but you're just kind of trying to see where you're at and where you're going to go. And I think that's the value. And that tells us a little bit about your core values. What made you develop them, and how did you even develop them?
Yeah. So when I look, like almost a decade ago, when I really set out on a mission to build a life where I felt good about myself, a life where I was contributing to society and not stealing from society. In order to have done that, I had to come up with, I had to acknowledge and start to live by a certain value system. And that's really, for a lot of people, I hear the word integrity all the time. I think it's a great word. I think it's wildly overused. I think my personal belief is that integrity is the result of your value system, not your actual value system. And I think I think integrity sometimes is used as kind of like a blanket because it's hard to get granular with our values. But integrity is where it started. The definition of integrity that I heard 9 years ago that resonated with me was to be whole, to be one, not to be perfect, not to be kind, not to be one with oneself. And so my value structure started, it was not defined 9 years ago, but I had to start living my life a certain way. I had to start living a life that was focused in service. I had to start living a life that was focused in faith. I had to start living a life that was focused in not self-preservation in the egotistical sense, but in the focusing on my physical fitness, focusing on my mental health, focusing on my knowledge and education. That living that way for a few years is what developed what we call now core values, right? And I started my business a few years into that journey, and I inadvertently implemented my own personal value structure into my business. I held people to the same standard that I held myself to. And I'll tell you why. At that time in my life, I was afraid to allow people who did not live by a certain set of values into my life for fear of my life going in a bad path.
Yeah.
It was not really so much about protecting my business at the time as it was about protecting me. And so I held people to the same value structure that I lived my life by. And what that did was it weeded out so many bad people from the team. Same thing with my wife, like core values. So long story short, the core values were developed by living, not by sitting down and jotting a bunch of buzzwords on a piece of paper and picking my favorite 6 of the bunch. I lived my life a certain way for such a long time that when it came time to define my core values, I made a list of the things that are most important to me on how I live. That was our core values. Yeah. I think a lot of people get that backwards. I think a lot of people I see a lot of people like, hey, can you send me the worksheet for developing core? I'm like, worksheet? Like what, how did you live yesterday morning from the time you got up to the time you went to bed? That's your worksheet. That's your
Yeah.
current value structure,
Yeah.
you know?
How do you find that in the people that you lead, in the people who work with you? How do you find that in them?
Well, you have to give them a shot.
Mhm.
And I am a little bit more rigid about this now than I used to be, but it's really, we start real early. So like I have ads out now, we're trying to grow. We're going through a growth push again at the renovation business. I have a line in the ad that's there's a hurdle, and it says, do this. Send us an email and tell us blank. If you
Yeah.
send me an email and tell me anything other than what I asked you to tell me, you're automatically on the red list. You're deleted and gone.
Yeah.
Why? It shows you can't follow instructions and you can't communicate proactively. That's our first core value, is proactive communication. You have already eliminated yourself from the running by proving that you cannot do that. So if they can pass those hurdles and they can come into the fold, people, this is my own experience. I can't say this will be everybody's experience, but what I have found is when your whole team is living by the set of values, you don't really have to fire anybody. People will come on and leave fast. They will feel wildly uncomfortable in that environment if they don't live by those values. You
Mhm.
don't really have to do much,
Yeah.
but you got to give people a shot.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. And I think you said it perfectly. I think you give them a shot and then they will self-select themselves. And they will either stay and grow or they're just going to go elsewhere because they just can't be in this type of organization that kind of pushes them a little bit. What are some mistakes that you've seen maybe in yourself or even in other leaders who are running a seven-figure organization? What are some of those?
Sure, I'll talk solely on myself because I've made all of the mistakes you can make. So I would say that probably the biggest and most glaring one when it pertains to leading a team and core values is keeping people who are really productive selling or completing your product or service in lieu of not fulfilling and living by your core values. So you've got there, every company has these really high performers who
Yeah.
are really toxic, cancerous additions to their team. And what that high performer is doing, it's an illusion that we think that they're producing at some level that we will never be able to replicate. And so we keep them on and we disregard our own processes and we kind of allow them to behave the way they're behaving. And we have these constant, hey, you can't do that. And what they're doing is those people are driving out all of your potential high performers who do fit your value structure. And the high performers who do fit your value structure, those are the people that replicate your business. That's the scalable model. The value adherence is the scalable business model. The toxic employee is not. For every toxic staff and team member that you have, you're losing 3 good people.
Yeah.
Now, I made that statistic up. That's just my own experience. I have nothing to cite there. But that's the biggest mistake, is keeping people who don't. It's if you're going to have core values at your business and you're going to talk about them, and we meet about them every week. We go over them as a full staff every Monday. We talk through them. We do behaviors that correlate to, really the whole company's, the conversations are constantly revolving around our core value structure. Always.
Yeah.
Every decision, every success and every loss is, how did that pertain to what core value and why?
Yeah.
Every single one. But the thing is, like, the reason that works for me is because when people come on and they're really good at the job, but they really don't fit the structure, I fire them. And the rest of the team sees that resonates with the rest of I will sacrifice short-term gain for long-term, I don't even know what you really like. I call it long-term gain. It's really sustainability, in my opinion. It's not even like a gain. Long-term sustainability for me is more important than short-term money.
Yeah.
Short-term production, short-term sales, short-term, all that stuff doesn't matter if you're not around 10 years from now.
Yeah. What really resonated with me, Sam, is, and you said it, I think perfectly, is not only do you as a leader embody the core values, but everybody around you embodies those core values, but you don't talk about it once. You keep having that conversation. I know Ed Milet, who I know you know as well too, he says that all the time. As a leader, as an entrepreneur, we talk about those core values all the time. It's not something that goes on the wall. not only live it, but we talk about it every single time. And that's no different in healthcare, Sam. That is no different in healthcare too. We have to kind of embody, what our core values are, but we talk about it. Here's maybe a good example is, as a physician, we're always watched. And I don't mean that in a negative way. We're always watched because you're considered like, the captain of the ship, whatever department you're in, be it in the operating room, be it in the emergency department, be it in a clinic, you are always watched. And that is a huge responsibility. But that is such a great opportunity to embody what you want the team to do. So when you see something not right, well, you address it, but then you talk about it. That's not what we do here. This is how we do it. And we talked a little bit offline. One of the very many reasons I wanted to have you on this week's show is because, again, you're not in healthcare, right? But you embody those same principles as I want all of us to embody. Sam, just as maybe a little bit of a segue, we had mentioned in our earlier in the intros, you're a husband and a father of two. One of the things that I think many of us struggle with, be it in any industry, healthcare, finance, and any entrepreneur venture, is that work-life balance. What are some things that you do to make sure you're succeeding in your personal life and your professional life?
Yeah. First, I personally don't use the word balance in my life because it puts an unruly amount of pressure on me to feel like I'm balancing the scale is a lot more difficult and stressful than understanding what a healthy scale looks like. It's almost like weight. So like, I want to lose weight is a lot different than saying this is a healthy weight for me. I'm going to get here and maintain within 5 pounds of that, because as long as I'm 5 up, 5 down from that place, I'm really in a good spot.
Yeah.
But when we say, 180 is healthy, 190 is dying, that's a lot of pressure to stay under 190. I mean, that's scary. That's stressful. And so as far as harmony, I like to call it harmony. And as far as harmony is concerned,
I love that.
So my goal is to be so intentional in my day-to-day activity that there's a harmonization between my business, my faith, my family, my wife, my children, my extended family, my friendships. And I have a coach and mentor who calls these things pillars. And I've taken his pillar theory and in my own life kind of made it one step forward. And the truth is that each pillar is built in the same foundation. They're not separate homes on different pieces of land. It's all one foundation. All the pillars come up together. If one pillar is raising too high, it's pulling foundation weight from the others. There's no way to build this one pillar without leaning this one. Okay. And you lean too far, it's going to fall over. Okay. So my goal is to build the pillars in harmony with each other. How I do that is, and I know this might sound like it's placed just because of the topic of the podcast, but quite literally through core value implementation. And again, I go back to proactive communication. It's okay to have an incredibly busy week at work. That happens. When that happens, it is my responsibility to go to my wife ahead of that week, sit down and go, here's my calendar. This is what Monday looks like. I'm going to need help here and here. This is what, hey, look, I got a gap Wednesday. How can I help with the kids in this 3-hour gap? Because I'm available. I know I'm not going to be very present here and here, but what can I do here to help from being gone? And she's like, okay, well, I got this, and this here. Cool. All right, let's call in Grandpa. We'll get some help here. It's really about caring enough to actually communicate what's going on. And then when I'm there, be incredibly intentional. And so like, I don't really take like a ton of days off per se. Mike Claudio says this a lot. And this is exactly this was the best way that I've never been able to think of it on my own. But when you ask Mike, how many hours a day do you work? His response is, I work 18 hours a day at my life.
Yeah.
That's exactly how I try to look at my day. So like yesterday, for instance, was Memorial Day, right? Memorial Day, the store was closed. I had some emails and stuff, but my phone goes on do not disturb when I get on this podcast with you, the same way my phone goes on do not disturb when I sat down last night to build a Charizard Lego with my 10-year-old son. There's no difference in intentionality. That phone cannot ring. If that phone is allowed to ring when I'm with my kid, but not when I'm on this podcast with you, I am speaking volumes to the universe about what's more important to me. Okay. And not one is more important to me. They fulfill me in different ways, but I really have to be as intentional about the quality at which I show up to things. It doesn't matter if I work 3 hours a day or 15. For me, 3 hours a day of work with intentional quality is way more effective than 12 straight hours of just showing up. I've done both.
Yeah.
I really have.
Yeah.
And that's really how the harmony, the fitness thing too, is like it all, for me, it all has to build together. If I'm not, I mean, and it's simple. If I'm not in good shape, and this is real. Like there was a time in my life where I was uncomfortable being on the ground building a Lego with my son because of the shape that I was in, because I was working 15 hours a day, 6 days a week. I was almost 300 pounds back in 2018. I was 3-4 years into my business. I was taking no care of myself. It hurt my body to be on the ground. And I was in my mid 20s, overweight and pain. Is that the dad that I want to? I want to be the same guy who shows up to the office to lead the core value meeting, who shows up at home to build a Charizard, who shows up on the podcast to be interviewed. I want that's integrity to me, being whole, one with myself everywhere.
Yeah. Sam, you might be seeing this. I've got this huge smile on my face because I actually wrote it down here. It fulfills you in different ways. And I think that needs to be heard again. It fulfills you in different ways. There's this guilt that I think many of us have that we can't feel that we, like when we're at home, we can't share that. Like, oh, I'm really happy about what I'm doing at work, because you feel that you're taken away from, that time with your family. And that's not the case at all. That thing that you do at work fulfills you and you do it fully. But when you're at home, that fulfills you too. So there isn't this struggle like, I love being with my family, but I also love being at work too. One of the things that we in medicine, Sam, that you may or may not know about is there's this thing, where a lot of us are really trying to burning out, especially over the past several years. COVID's really been an eye opener for a lot of us. And I know there are a lot of people who really want to leave medicine, and that's really never been my want. I love medicine. Is it perfect? No, but nothing is. Nothing is. And I enjoyed when I'm at work. I'm fulfilled when I'm there. It fulfills me differently than when I'm at home doing Lego. I was just, just before this podcast, Sam, I was out, riding the bike and, hitting the baseball with my little boy. That fulfills me. I don't think about work. I don't think about anything else. And I put my phone on focus mode, as you do as well too. So I think that needs to be heard. I have never heard that before, this work-life harmony. And I love it. I absolutely love it. I've never heard it that way. And I love it. And I'm glad, again, one of the many, many reasons I really wanted to have you on this week. I really want to touch on one more thing though, Sam, is the value of coaching. Talk to me a little bit about you being coached, and now you've become the coach, right? The student has now become the teacher. Let's talk a little bit about what you gained from being coached, I guess, would be the first part.
Sure. I'll try to keep this one as short as I can, but I do need to share that I sought coaching in a moment of pure desperation a couple of years ago. And I want to just be clear. I'm a firm believer that coaching is going to happen to further your success, whether you want it to or not. And you can wait until it's a moment of pain and desperation, or you can be proactive about it and get some help now. But the truth behind business coaching, or any fitness coaching, business coach, I don't care what it is it starts in the root of, it's the same thing that science does. It starts with the root of, I don't know. Okay. It has to start with the acceptance of, I don't know the answer, but I want more. And I don't know how to get there. And so what coaching really did for me, really at the bare root of it, it was a deep driving accountability that costs money. It's an investment. It's an investment vehicle in my own education and my own growth. And if you do the work, the ROI is pretty quick. And I was ready to do the work. And so coaching is one of the most, you got to be open to receive the information. I have to say that hiring a coach is not the answer. Hiring the right coach when ready to receive that information and do the work is the answer. And
Yeah.
I needed that. I ran alone for years and years. I was alone. And really the big thing that pushed me was when I was almost 300 pounds and I lost 100 pounds, I lost about 40 pounds on my own. I really I locked in, I dedicated, I wanted to change my life. The business was killing me, or I was killing me and using the business as an excuse, I should say. And when I lost 40 pounds, I got stuck and I tried all these different things and I couldn't get out. And then a buddy of mine had a fitness coach. And he said, "Hey man, try this guy out." And I was like, what? Someone's going to tell me to work. I already know I need to work. I already know I need to eat less. There's so much more tactical information and accountability to be had. And I hired that coach and ended up losing the other 60 pounds, changing my entire fitness mentality, my entire life, my health. I mean, and I've lost weight. I've lost 100 pounds, 3 separate occasions in my life. I have never been able to keep it off. And this time I was able to keep it off because of the education, the accountability that came from that coaching.
Yeah.
And so when it came time to want to really spring myself and my business into the next level, I thought back to that and said, there's no difference other than the price tag being a lot higher for a business coach than it is for a personal trainer.
Right.
There's no difference. I need accountability and education. I lost the first 40 pounds, right? I got 40% of the way there on my own, but this isn't enough for me. And what you don't know, what you don't know. And
Right.
I'm not just going to just wake up with this information out of nowhere. I need to bring in somebody who's done it before, and they'll walk me through the steps on how to repeat. It's a replicatable process. How do I replicate what they did in my business? Because I'll be honest, industry is not specific. Business is business.
Right.
Life is life. This really doesn't separate whether you're in medicine or you're in kitchen and bath or you're in coaching or you're in podcasting. The same principles apply. Different technicalities, same principles apply. And the reason that I was able to go from client to coach so quickly, I mean, I've been with Win Rate for under 6 months, and I've been with coaching for like 18 or a little, whatever that is. I went from client to coach so fast because I did the work.
Yeah.
I did the work. I implemented immediately. The ROI showed up quick, and I embody the core values of that company. That company has its own set of core values, and I embody those naturally. And that's what, and I'll be honest too, I do a lot of free service. One of the things that they made their decision. I've been running free coaching calls for months and months. I do it in one of the mutual groups that we're in. I do it in another group. That people notice. People notice when your drive to give is bigger than your drive to receive. 100%. And that's kind of how I try to live my life. But that's how coaches are. They're givers, Yeah. Most.
Servant leadership. And that's really what at its core, what it is. Now that you are a coach, Sam, what are some of the, a lot of what we do, whatever it is, industry is, it's all about pattern recognition. Have you noticed a certain pattern in some of the clients that you're now coaching? What is the 2 or 3 things that many of them come with you? Like, I have XYZ problem. And you're like, yep, I've heard this before. Have you noticed anything in particular?
I will tell you the two big things for everybody are self-doubt, not actually believing that you can do what it is that you want to do, and consistency.
Yeah.
Patience and discipline, and consistency being, when I tell you we meet every week and go over core values, I don't mean we meet when it's convenient. I don't mean it's once a month. I don't mean we cancel the meeting when it gets really busy. I don't mean we do it when everybody can show. We meet once a week, period, to talk about, and we never sacrifice the core values out of that conversation. I mean, every week. And one of the big things that I think people struggle with is it's the consistency with doing something that has no immediate ROI. People get really, and by the time you're in a moment of desperation, people are generally looking for a quick fix.
Yeah.
And so and that was my big thing. When I hired coaches, when I walked into Win Rate, I said, I need more sales now. Want to grow my business, I need sales. The entire time I've been with Win Rate, we have talked about sales twice and talked about believing in myself 1,000 times.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't sales that was my problem. I know how to get sales. I know how to run a business. I know how to bring on team members. I know how to onboard, fire. It wasn't tactical. And for most of us, it's not. Most of us did not get to where we are today by a lack of tactical application.
Yeah.
We're not informationless, we're applicationless. And it's consistency.
Yeah.
And it takes a long time to have weekly core value meetings before my team. Now, when there are times where I say something and my team, my wife, my staff go, well, that's not really in the core value. If you're going to, you got to kind of do it this way. That's not really in your core. And I go, and not once have I ever said, you're not allowed to say that to me. I go, hey, thank you. You are 100% right. I am so glad you said that. So let's do it this way.
Yeah. And I think you nailed it. And I think that's really a great way to end it, Sam, is you nailed it. I think most of us, me included, we kind of know really what the root problem is, but we say that it's something else, but in reality, it's not that. And having a coach who will keep you accountable and call you out on it, as you just said it, to call you out on it, and then for you to be humble enough to say, yeah, you're right. Let's move forward. And I think that's incredibly valuable to grow personally and professionally. So Sam, I've been so grateful and so blessed to have you on this week. And for many of our listeners who I guarantee you are going to want to learn more about you, where can we find more about Sam Kaufman?
Sure. The Facebook and Instagram are both at Sam Kaufman Official. The podcast is on all podcast platforms. It's Never Stop Building, or you can go to neverstopbuildingpodcast.com and access all the episodes. And my coaching is through WinRate Consulting. So winrateconsulting.com. If you have coaching or consulting inquiries, that website is the way to go.
And if for all you guys who are on your morning run, morning walk, if you're driving, make sure you take a look at the show notes that accompanies the video and the podcast, because they will all be there for you. So Sam, thank you so much. I had a great time. I learned so much, so much, and I appreciate your time and spending some time with us. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Thank you. Bye.